It's terrifying. Being a prisoner in the freedom of your own thoughts, inside the cells of your mind. It can be paralyzing to desire normalcy but feel trapped inside of your own personal horror loop, unable to move forward to obtain your goals. You fall deep into a dark abyss of depression.
Defining your own depression.
Moving further and further away from your hopes.
What triggers your depression?
Your dreams, they now have become nightmares. You've sunken into a place where your ambitions feel so far and out of reach. You feel hopeless, lost, alone, and unsure of how to get out. Searching for anything that can spark a ray of light to get you through.
Your search is now over. Let's work together on removing the shame and stigma that is associated with mental health challenges in our community. Join us now and every week as we share stories of inspiration, provide tools to help you find your way through, and encourage you to continue on the path to connecting with your light within. Welcome to the Cypher Health Mates. Let's talk about healing. The Mental Health Cypher. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Mental Health Cypher. This is the Soul Scribe.
And this is the Urban Yogi.
And on this episode, we will be talking about mental illness and the stigma that comes along with it. One thing about mental health and mental illness is it is pretty much an quote unquote invisible dis-ease, challenge, situation that we are faced with. And because people in our families, in our community that we work with, because it's not something that's painful, because it's not a bruise on your arm, because it's not something that they can visually see all the time, there is a stigma that typically comes with mental illness. And it can affect us in so many ways, like people not being sympathetic enough, people not understanding what having issues with your mental health really is, people joking about mental health around you, and you're like, oh, I'm one of those people. It can be a variety of things of how stigma shows up in our life, depending on how old you are. I think nowadays, in my opinion, I think the stigma is lessening nowadays due to the internet and social media and more people speaking out about their experience with mental health issues like anxiety and depression. We have more movies out about now, more movies out that deal with mental health and mental wellness. We have more people just talking about it in general. So I kind of err on the side of the stigma is lessening than it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Because back then, which is not really long ago, but most people will be like, hey, so-and-so is quote unquote crazy. And if you didn't want to be labeled crazy, but you had issues, you won't say anything about it. What are your thoughts on it, Sai?
Stigma it's like a block. It's like an energy block when it comes to mental illness. And any block, when you're talking about energy, prevents you from achieving and heading down that path for healing. And the first step to healing is acknowledging what needs to be healed. When I was coming up, a lot of the terms that are readily available for definition now wasn't being spoke about, or even I had no knowledge of these words, these diagnoses, these identifying terms to signify mental illness. Neither did the people around me. We would say things like for depression, feeling down, feeling sad, feeling blue, feeling in a funk. Anxiety, we would call stress, overwhelmed. All of these are good adjectives, but they really didn't help to identify what the problem is itself. And once you can identify with the problem, then you can move forward to start the process of healing or getting assistance to be healed. But stigma was so strong, it was so powerful, it had a life all onto itself. And many people that I grew up with, myself included, and this is all hindsight, just looking back on it, we suffered through having various mental challenges and mental illnesses without saying anything because there was such a stigma about being perceived as weak or crazy, weird, oddball, off-brand, misfit, outcast, and all these other terms that we use to describe people who have challenges. You didn't want that label. You didn't want that brand because you became an easy target for ridicule and persecution and things of that nature. Still didn't work for me because I still was subject to all of that and still was still hiding behind the stigma, the fear of stigma. It's better to be assumed to be crazy or assumed to be this or assumed to be that rather than to openly admit it yourself. If I had a nickel for every time someone asked me, what's wrong with you? Why are you so this? Why are you that? Yeah, I would be a rich man. The truth is, I didn't know. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I knew something was wrong with me. That was evident, but again, just having a platform to talk about it, having a non-judgmental air to speak about it to someone, I didn't have none of that available to me. So I internalized a lot of things and just tried to tough it out, as I was told, to man up, to stop feeling that way. None of these were effective means to deal with it, but this is all I had available to me. Real men don't cry. Real men don't feel this way. Real men don't do this. You're a punk if you do this. You're a punk if you do that. It was a lot. It was just a lot of blocks that was keeping me subservient to finding out what was going on inside of my mind. So I became a prisoner within my own mind. And I became a prisoner of my mental illness because, again, I didn't have the knowledge, the verbiage, the language to even convey what was happening to me, to get the proper diagnosis for it, and then to be able to discuss or have resources to engage in some kind of healing modality, some kind of therapy, some kind of practice. Therapy, that was another thing. Therapy was unheard of. The only therapy that was commonly known and accepted was physical therapy. If you had to rehab yourself somehow from an injury or something like that. Like you said earlier, if it's something physical that someone can see, okay, there's empathy there. Oh, he broke his leg. Oh, I hope your leg get better. You got a cast on your leg. Okay, what about your spirit being broken? What about your mind being broken? What about your thoughts being broken? These are things that happen within my community to a lot of people that, again, looking back on it, it was such little dialogue about it. It was such little discussion about it. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people, their mental illness is exacerbated and took over their behaviors, and they became violent, or they did certain acts that landed them in jail or ruined their life or the life of others. I mean, it was just a snowball effect of a lot of avoidable situations that if we were stigma of mental illness, feeling different, thinking different, having different things happen to you that no one else is really experiencing, that person should have been treated much differently with a little bit of more understanding and kindness that just wasn't there growing up. So we live in a day and age now where it's still happening to this day, but we got a lot more resources. We have a lot more language and information about it. It's really just no reason for stigma, for that stigma of mental illness to still be as powerful as it is today. So hopefully, what we're doing with this podcast, having the dialogue, I would love to see talking about mental health be something trendy. You know, that's trending. To be able to openly discuss, hey, I'm not feeling at my best, or I haven't been feeling at my best for a long time. I'm tired of not feeling at my best. What can I do about it? Where can I go?
Right, because for a long time, I think what's that thing they say in the courts? Ignorance of the law is no defense. So ignorance of mental health challenges and the things that people go through is no longer a defense that society can use, in my humble opinion. Um, a lot of times people may say that someone is doing this to themselves. When stress happens, when anxiety happens, and then it goes up the proverbial ladder of from stress to anxiety to depression to OCD to bipolarism to schizophrenia, all of those things as they escalate. Some people are of the mindset that it's something that's self-inflicted, and it's not always the case. Some of it is truly a chemical imbalance that no one can see. Some of it is work related, just dealing with work. Some of it is just dealing with familial relationships and the stress that comes along with dealing with family. A woman that has had a baby and now she doesn't have any help in the home. So now she's trying to take care of a little person as well as take care of herself and her husband or whomever else may be in the household. But her life has changed all of a sudden. Even though she was expecting it, her life has changed all of a sudden. So how does she deal with that? And I think sometimes we're not compassionate enough with each other in trying to understand, even though we know we go through things, we're not compassionate enough with other people. We all go through things, and some people handle it different. Some people may shut themselves off in a room to handle what's going on in society. Someone else may still be able to function in society, even though it's tearing them up inside, but we're all experiencing the same thing. And I think as our compassion level increases, it will reduce the stigma that we currently see and will continue to help decrease what's going on. It's also a great thing that a lot of celebrities, one in particular, Taraji P. Henson has a foundation now in honor of her father. in his battles with mental health concerns. We also have groups like NAMI, and people are beginning to trend and spread the help hotlines and websites. And I think as we continue to do that and just put it in people's faces, the Mental Health Cypher and other people that not necessarily are in the field of therapy or psychiatry, but just regular folk, people that actually deal with each other every day. As we increase our efforts to bring awareness to it and share our stories, this will help to decrease the not so good aspects, the negative, quote unquote, negative aspects of stigma. However, we also have to be mindful that we're not allowing ourselves to stigmatize ourselves as well.
I think when people in specific positions in the community and society comes out speaking about mental illness, it sheds a new light on it, and it helps to peel back some of the layers of the stigma. But it's a slow-moving process that desperately needs to be expedited. So I think when you have people in the sports industry, different musicians and different artists, different actors and actresses, when they came out speaking about, it's one thing when they talking about a cause, like I want to bring awareness to this, I want to donate, I want to start a charity, a non-profit, because a family member or a parent or a sibling went through it. You know, that's beautiful. I'm not discounting that at all, but it's very, sometimes it's more impactful when they're speaking about the mental illness within themselves and saying that I have this is something that I deal with. But you look at their public persona, and you're not equating that to mental illness. They don't look this. They don't look that. They always seem so. They always seem so bad. When you have that narrative inside of your mind, that's stigma. That's the stigma that you have about what mental illness is, what it looks like, who it affects. And mental illness has no, it's not gender specific. It isn't race specific, age specific, culturally, it doesn't matter. But stigma is universal. Stigma is worldwide, it's global. Everybody has the the delusion, the distorted view that someone with mental illness is something wrong with them. There's something fundamentally wrong with them. They're a flawed human being. They're unrepairable, and they're not repairable. Remember back in the day, they used to lobotomize people who had mental illnesses. That was their treatment. A hole in their head. Take out the part of the brain that causes the mental illness and leave them in a vegetative state. That's like that visual is what stigma does. It's taking out a piece of your humanity. It's taking out a piece of your spirit and leaving you in a vegetative state of silent suffering. And then once someone reaches that point where they decide to commit suicide, then it comes out. They've been struggling with depression. They've been struggling with anxiety. They've been just struggling with grief, PTSD. It shouldn't have to escalate to the point where someone loses their life before we start having this dialogue, before we start realizing the stigma is something that, as a collective, is holding us back from collectively healing, from being more empathetic, being more sympathetic, and from being more open to have a dialogue about it. And like you said, the catchphrase should be trending worldwide. It's okay not to be okay. Even with me, once I reinvented myself, once I got myself on a path, a spiritual path, and then focus on self-development, and seemingly on the outside, everything is going good. I'm living the life I want to live, and I'm inspiring people. I'm so solid in my foundation. I'm the one that people come to for advice when they're going through something. Always have something positive to say. And all of that was true. That was not a false persona I was projecting. But behind the scenes, I was also going through my challenges. And because I had this reputation in my circle of being the solid one. If everybody else losing it, Side got his head on straight. Side I want to talk to if you need to raise your vibration up. But Side didn't have anybody to talk to when he had those low moments and those low vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me stigmatizing myself, because I didn't want to lose that respect, that rapport that I had with my circle by saying, hey, I need somebody to talk to. I'm not feeling at my best right now. That was recent. And when I say recent, I'm talking in the last couple of years I was able to do that I felt comfortable enough to do that. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have had to feel comfortable doing it. It should be an uncomfortable situation. It should be uncomfortable. But to function through your uncomfortable mindset is the only way you're really going to grow, because we grow outside our comfort zone and not inside of it. So I had to wait until I felt comfortable enough to find that, it may look like I'm always positive and I'm always happy, but that ain't so. And I'm having a moment right now where I'm not feeling happy. I'm not feeling at my best. But before I could even take that step, I had to have the inner dialogue with myself and tell myself it's okay to feel that way. And because I'm an extremist, now I'm doing it in a big way. Now I'm doing a whole show about it. So just talking about it, do a podcast about it.
Right. And even for myself, I'm one of those people as well that typically, and what's the catch term that they have now? I think they call it the strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's always strong, she's always taking care of everybody else, and it's not just the strong woman, it's the strong man as well. And especially in our community, as Blacks, as African Americans, as people of color, I think that it is quote unquote worse for us in some situations, because no matter what happens around us, we always have to make sure that everything keeps going. No matter what happens, we don't have time for breaks. We don't have time to stop and feel sorry for ourselves. We don't have time to stop and tell somebody, no, I'm not good, because most times we got other people behind us depending on us. And for me personally, that has been one of my challenges, being able to take care of me, being able to open up and say, hey, yeah, I am going through something right now. I'm not just shutting you off because I'm busy, but I'm shutting you off because I'm trying to deal with my own shit right now. Um, and as we continue to build on this show, which for me as well, it is a great therapeutic workout to be able to discuss these things, these issues, these challenges, and also be able to release, some of the stuff that I'm going through. And I encourage anyone that's listening to the show to, send us a message, email us, check us out if you need someone to speak to, find someone else. I know it can also be tough to lean on your friends, like you said, Sai, because you're the one that's always tough. So why do I want to be the one that has to come to somebody else and ask them for help? So reach out to someone that's not someone that you know personally. Reach out to a stranger. Sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger than it is to speak to someone you know. So those are some options to help people with the self-inflicted pain of dealing with your own mental health challenges. And that's why we're here.
Let me add on to that. If you're the one that someone's reaching out to, first and foremost, remove judgment. Don't judge anybody for what they're going through. Everybody has their challenges. Some people manage it better than others. But for those who manage it, who needs help in managing it, the last thing you want them to feel is judged, scrutinized, or held under a microscope. If they're trusting you enough to come to you, there's some level of need and comfortability that they feel with you. Don't betray that by stigmatizing them. Remove judgment. Many times people need to just verbally speak out what's happening in their mind, what's happening in their life. Sometimes they just need an ear. You don't need to do anything but just listen. And I feel like a bartender many times. I've had people who just meet me and they open up to me. I mean, telling me some of their deepest, darkest secrets. And I guess that's just the energy that I project because I'm putting out there what I want, what I need. So I'll listen with no judgment. I listen with a sympathetic and empathetic ear because it's not too many experiences that people had when it comes to mental illness that I didn't have myself. And many times because I can relate, I can impart some wisdom or something that I use for my personal challenges that work for me to make it work for them. I'm old school. Back in the day, we used to have a saying, each one teach one. Meaning that if each person that you knew and each person that person knew, if we would allow ourselves to be taught and to teach, then we collectively will all grow in this center. And I believe that's the movement that we are organically hoping to initiate with the Mental Health Cypher and all the other attachments to this movement that we are discussing, that we are creating, and hopefully inspiring. All movements needs participation from the collective to make an impact. So if someone's listening to our show and they hear something that can help them, or they hear something that they can impart to somebody else that can help them, I mean, that's a blessing. That's what this is all about. This show, selfishly, is all about my healing. I'm just doing it publicly through this podcast because speaking about it is the first step to correcting it. And then sharing our personal stories that we can help someone feel inclined to share their stories, to start having a dialogue with themselves, then that is the first step into ultimately healing themselves. And again, that's a blessing. That's what this is all about. That's what, if everybody, each one teach one, then this is how we cause a ripple effect of healing.
Yes, yes, yes. The ripple effect and the dominoes falling down to erase and get rid of the stigma. We want to say thank you guys for joining us for our episode this evening or today, whatever time zone you are when you're listening. Make sure you share it out to other people if you feel like it did help you, and let them get a dose of the Mental Health Cypher. Peace.
Peace.